And this is episode 44 of the Lifestyle Entrepreneur Podcast. And I'm so honored for our next guest, who is Eben Pagan, who's going to be teaching you key strategies and techniques to help you truly accelerate your business to multiple seven figures. This is one podcast episode that you do not want to miss. And make sure you head over to lifestyleacademy.com/Eben, EBEN, to receive and sign up for a free training to show you key productivity tips and his strategies to help you scale your business. Welcome to the Lifestyle Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Kris Gilbertson, and I'm an author, speaker, and a coach to teaching you how to launch your own successful podcast. And the reason I designed this show is to bring you the top lifestyle entrepreneur experts from all over the world for them to share their key strategies that they've used to launch their own businesses and allow them to live life on their own terms. So tune in every Friday for new episodes and come on over and join the Lifestyle Entrepreneur community at www.lifestyleacademy.com. There you're going to receive VIP training from specific guests from the podcast, along with being able to watch all of the interviews. And I'll also be making it really easy for you to implement these strategies that you're hearing by sending you what I like to call the lifestyle cliff notes on the best of the best lessons learned on the podcast. So let's get started. All right, so before we get started with the show, I just want to thank everyone who is subscribing and leaving awesome reviews in iTunes. I'm so excited that people are enjoying these interviews, and I'm excited to announce First Fridays. So what I'm going to be doing the first Friday of every month, we're going to have a raffle for those of you that have subscribed to the podcast and then also left a review, and it'll be a raffle for $25 gift cards from iTunes, Amazon, eBay, all over the place. So all you simply need to do is just subscribe to the podcast in iTunes and then leave us a review, and your name will go in a hat, and we'll announce that the first Friday of every month. And this week's loyal listener shout out goes out to Don Wild, and they say, business owner 5 stars. I have subscribed to several business development podcasts, and this one is in the top of my list. Take notes. This one is content rich. Well, Don, thank you so much for the amazing review, and you are going to love this episode with Eben. So without further ado, I want to get right into this content rich episode on how to scale, systematize, and take your business to 7 figures with Eben Pagan. Well, welcome back, everyone. I am so excited and honored for our next guest today, where we're really going to be talking about key productivity tips and really how to really scale and grow your business and create massive business growth for your own ideas. So my guest today is Eben Pagan, and I just love his story and what he's actually been able to create in the marketplace. So his first online business was actually from his bedroom back in 2001. So he began with an ebook dating advice company, and his company grew to over 10 brands, selling more than $100 million worth of trainings and information products. But the most incredible part is it's with 70 employees, but it was all 100% virtual, absolutely no office. So today, Eben teaches entrepreneurs around the world how to grow their businesses through his online training courses. And he also invests and advises high growth startups, including Entreport, Splash, Inflection, and OnGig. So Eben, I'm so honored and excited to have you here today. Welcome to the Lifestyle Entrepreneur Podcast.
Thanks, Kris. It's good to be here.
Excellent. Well, I really would love for you to start to share just from your journey to who you've become today as a business owner and really your interest in business growth.
Yeah, my main interest in business growth is that it it helped me not be poor. I know that's a kind of a trite answer, but I grew up in the backwoods of Oregon, down a dirt road, and didn't know anyone that was rich or successful when I was a kid, and didn't know anyone who knew anyone that was rich or successful. And as I got older and I tried different things and none of them really worked out, I realized I want to have success in my life. And when I learn things, I tend to pay a lot of attention and, really try to figure them out. So when I started learning business, I did it the same way. And took a little while. I have no formal business training. I didn't get a college degree. I dropped out of high school, dropped out of college, and so forth. But as I found the different areas that are the important areas of business, I was fascinated because you can make one change and, not just grow a little bit, but, it's especially in areas like marketing and with people, you can get double the results or, 10 times the results. I've had up to 1,300% increase in response by changing an advertisement. So that's how I really got interested in it, was doing things and seeing them work, and then seeing the potential for having a successful business.
Yeah, it's so exciting, and we're going to get more into that here in a little bit. But I'd love for you to share how you got into your first business with the dating advice. Like, how did that come about, and how did that evolve?
Yeah, when I was 22 years old, I was a long-haired rock and roll guitar player and working a manual labor job, making $10 an hour that I'd had for 7 years or something. And I said, I need to get into this business thing. And I went and I got a real estate license, which a lot of people do. And so, there I was with my ponytail driving around in my Camaro trying to sell houses. As you can imagine, that didn't work out too well. I sold, I think, 1 1/3 homes my first year in real estate. And as I'm struggling trying to figure it out, I discovered marketing. Now, you'd think that, you go into an industry like real estate, and after years working there, I would probably be rich, but I didn't get rich. I worked in real estate for 7 or 8 years, and, it just never really went anywhere for me. I did some consulting toward the end. I was learning marketing, and I started to do okay, but nothing really took off. And it was always, manual kind of work where I had to show up. And then a friend of mine had written an ebook and put it online, and he said, you got to stop all that working stuff, and you need to try this. And I said, all right, what are you doing? And I had gone through a phase in my life where I was very socially awkward and wanted to learn dating, and so I read a bunch of books and met a bunch of guys who were really good in that world, and it all clicked for me. And I said, okay, well, I can do this. So I locked myself in my bedroom and I wrote a book of dating advice in a few weeks. And it's no literary masterpiece, I tell you that. And I taught myself how to make web pages and set things up. And this was back before any of these great tools were available, and how to take payments and stuff. And it took a few months to do that. And I put the book online, and I started doing pay-per-click marketing and started selling a few books here and there, and then just kind of built it from there. So it was in a totally new niche, in a completely new environment. I think the thing that really made it work for me, though, was that I had some marketing knowledge. I had studied marketing for a while, and when you know marketing, you could apply it to any situation. But yeah, that's how I got started. I mean, that business, by the way, first year we did. I mean, well, at the beginning, I would do a day of $20 in sales, or I think it was $30 for my book. So we tested different prices, but like $30, and some days I'd do 60 and 90, and then several months in, I had a big day, I remember, where I raised the price of my book. I tested a higher price point and to $40, and we sold $400 worth of books in one day. And then, I did 150,000 my first year. And then we went to 500,000, and then 1.5 million, and then 5 million, and then 12 million. And we just kept growing it from there.
Oh, that's so amazing. So with the product development side of it, because this is a lot what you teach with helping entrepreneurs get those ideas out and actually launch that business online, what are your top 3 tips to helping them really position their products for success?
Yeah, I want to say something on the way into this, discussion, which is business is it's a multiplication game. It's not an addition game. What I mean by that is, if you make a change in your business, it doesn't just add a little bit. It actually multiplies everything else that you're doing. For example, let's say you have a website and you've got an opt-in page on your website. And then after the opt-in page, you've got a follow-up email that you send out to people. And then after the follow-up email, you've got a product that you sell to them, and you've got an offer. Maybe it's a video that sells them something. So you got an opt-in page, and then a follow-up email, and then a video that sells them something. Well, if I double the opt-in rate, okay, that doesn't just add a little. That will probably actually double how many people get the follow-up email, which means it doubles how many people watch the video, which means in a lot of cases it'll actually double my sales. But then further, if I go and I test and I tweak and I figure out how to make a better email that gets twice as many people to click on it, right? It doesn't just add a little bit, it actually doubles again, and the two double each other. So 2 times 2 is 4. And so by putting these little tweaks into your business, for example, if you find 7 things that can double your conversion, right? You don't get 7 times the result, you get 128 times the result. and then 3 more doublings, you get 1,000 times. So as we talk about product development and positioning, each of these are things that can increase your business by 10%, 50%, 100%, 500%. I've had, advertisements do 5 times, 10 times, 10 times as good. So they're really important. They're not just, we don't just do this to have fun or because we want to have a fancy logo or, I want people to like me. We're attacking this like scientists. We want to do this because this eventually leads to our income and to our security and to the lifestyle that we want. Okay. So you want to talk product and positioning?
Yeah, well, just to segue off of that, and I think maybe this is the perfect time. I was going to ask this question later on, but I know you really mentioned a lot that success is usually not obvious and it's counterintuitive. And I think right now this is the piece exactly what you're talking about, because most of us, especially when people are getting started or even when they're looking to scale to the next level, they're worried about their brand or their positioning or the header or the logo or the title. And so it's not about that, like what you just explained. So what is the counterintuitive piece that most of us miss when we're looking to grow and scale our business?
Yeah. So I call this concept, I have a little name for it. I call it the critical counterintuitive, meaning that there's some critical thing that you need to change, but it's very likely that that thing is counterintuitive to do, meaning that when you come upon the situation and you're actually there, what you will naturally want to do is the opposite of what you should do. Counter, right? So it becomes counterproductive. In the dating advice world, I taught dating advice for several years, and it provides a lot of charming and painful and interesting lessons. So for example, when I was really socially awkward, and I didn't know anything about how to talk to a woman, and this goes for most guys that aren't comfortable in that space. If I saw a woman that I thought was interesting, it was my intuition to go over and say like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. Would you I know I'm a total loser, but maybe you could talk to me for, just 1 minute and see that I'm a sweet dude. And then, maybe you'd let me take you out on a date, torture you for hours with this kind of, behavior. And then, that's kind of what I did. That was the basic stance that I had. And then I started watching guys who, I made friends with some guys that really got the whole dating and attraction thing. And I saw them do things that they seemed like violations of universal law, like, a guy would be, we'd be out at a bar and, there's me with my journal watching and taking notes, that's what I'm all about.
I love it, Eben.
And so, the guy would, see an attractive woman and he'd turn and like make fun of her purse, and like say like, that's what do you got a gun in there or something? And I'm waiting for her to get upset and smack him, and she starts laughing, and I say, what was that? Well, what's happening? So counterintuitive, the opposite of what you would naturally do. And in business, there are so many of these things, as well. And we could go on and on. I mean, in a lot of ways, whatever we talk about here will almost be an example of it. But the thing to remember is the way that we're wired, the actual, if you study some evolutionary psychology, the ways that we are wired down deep in our subconscious, it causes us to trip when we're in common situations in this environment, because we didn't evolve, living in cities and with the internet and having to deal with complex decisions about the future. It was we evolved in a real-time kind of situation. And so, anyway, and if you want to talk psychology, we can dive into some of that.
Well, I love this. And I think it's so, because with where people are at with so much information coming at them today, especially as business owners trying to navigate with the online space and how to get their message out there where it grabs people's attention, I want to use this to help them, because like what you were talking about when we first started talking, that you tweaked one ad and that multiplied your business, tenfold for the results that it would get. So what do you think is the most counterintuitive piece that we're missing in marketing? And I know that's kind of broad, but maybe that psychology piece fits in with that, of how you can explain that for business owners.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the key idea here we might call narcissism. And, narcissism in this kind of, layman's kind of sense here is when you just think about yourself. And what most people do when they're approaching a marketing situation is they write an advertisement for themselves rather than writing the advertisement for their customer. Now, I often run into situations. A lot of people ask me about marketing, and a lot of folks that ask me, they'll come from way outside of our industry, so maybe they have no experience with direct response marketing or with any of the kind of high-powered marketing tools that we use. And I'll say, here, I think you should make a video, and then here's the outline for it. And I think the video should be about 20 minutes long, and start with this, and here's what you show them. And after I've made the outline and whatever, the person will turn to me and say, "Well, I don't think anyone will even watch that. Well, nobody's even going to watch a video that's 20 minutes long. I don't have time to watch a 20-minute video." And I'll say, well, no one's going to watch it unless they have the problem that you're talking about, and unless they want a solution. And the reality is you don't want most people to watch it, because all the people that aren't interested, they're just going to waste your time anyway. You only want someone who is interested. And if you can make a video that in the first few seconds communicates, hey, if you've got this problem or you want this outcome, this video is going to show you what to do and how to get it and how to avoid all the pitfalls that you're probably afraid of right now. If you can communicate that right up front, the person watching it is going to stop what they're doing. They're going to pause the video. They're going to go get themselves something to drink, and they're going to come back and sit down because they're going to be committed to watching it all the way through. So it's counterintuitive to think from the perspective of the other person. It's intuitive to be narcissistic and think that everyone else thinks like you, right? And so I think there's some interesting research. I've got a new baby daughter that's almost a year old, and I love studying development and all this kind of thing. And one of the experiments they do with children is fascinating. They take a 3-year-old and they'll bring the 3-year-old into a room, and they'll take a crayon box and they open up the crayon box and they dump out the crayons, and then they take a little piece of candy and they put the candy inside the crayon box and they close it. So the 3-year-old, 3-year-old's pretty smart. They know what's going on here. They get what just happened. Then they bring another person into the room who wasn't there for all of this, and they say to the 3-year-old, what does that person think is in the crayon box? And the 3-year-old says they think that there's candy in there, because they can't think like another person. They can only think like themselves, and they assume everyone else is where they're at. Now, something happens at about age 4 where this changes, and you can all of a sudden perspective or project your consciousness into another kind of person's point of view. So if you take a 5-year-old and you do the same thing, and you pour out the crayons and you put in the candy and you close it, and then you bring in the other person, and you say to the 5-year-old, what does that person think is in the crayon box? The 5-year-old will look at you and say, what do you think, I'm stupid? Like, they think there's crayons in there.
Right.
They weren't here for that. Mm-hmm. So something happens when we're about 4 years old where we're able to imagine what's going on for the other person, right? They call it theory of mind, where we're able to start interacting with the other person based on what we think they're thinking, not on what we're thinking. Well, another thing happens, I think, where our egos just grab control of that power and it takes it over, and we use it for all of our own kind of selfish ends, rather than taking this, which may be one of our great superpowers. Maybe it might even be our number one superpower, to take other perspectives and to use it as a tool. So one of the things that I teach people to do is to imagine that you're your customer, right? Actually close your eyes, take a deep breath, relax. Imagine that you're your customer, project into their situation, and imagine what it's like to be them right when they realize that they have a problem, or right when they realize that they need a solution. What actually happens in that moment? Back to, we'll use dating advice. Well, if I project myself into the shoes of a socially awkward guy who's standing at Starbucks and he's in line behind a woman that he finds interesting, and she, turns and looks and gives him a little smile, and he's trying to think of something to say, and he's freaking out, and then now she's up at the counter, and he's thinking what to say, and then she walks away, and by the time he figures out something to say, she's already gone, and then he's kicking himself, and he's beating himself up, and then he goes home, and he sits down at his computer, right, and he types in pickup line. That's who you're meeting. That's where you're meeting them. And by doing this exercise of really getting into the mindset of the customer to the point where you start feeling the emotions that they're feeling, it creates all kinds of insights about your product, about your marketing, about how to communicate with them. So yeah, practicing empathy. One of the things I teach is that compassion might be the most profitable business skill. When you actually take a real interest in the needs of other people, you can have insights that can make you rich.
Absolutely. And I love just the visualization of meeting, your customers and clients and prospects where they're at. And I think that, that goes back to the lizard brain, the crocodile brain of where we all make decisions, and being able to use that where I just think it's so powerful, because when they actually come into that ad or wherever it is that's popping up to grab their attention, it really does meet them right at that point. So I wanted to ask one more thing on that marketing piece because there are a lot of marketers, they want to talk to, they're trying to meet the customer where they're at, but their languaging is where where they've already processed the idea through their mind and figured it out. And they're using that language to market to them. I think that's the next gap that happens. And I'd love for you to share insights on how to stop doing that.
Yeah. Will you ask the question again in a different way? I really want to get this one right. I'm not sure I perfectly understand it.
Because I love how you talked about meeting, visualizing and understanding where the feeling is coming from, where your prospect's at. But I think what happens, the disconnect happens, is the expert or the person that has the answer has this process of how they're going to help this person, and it's not simple enough for someone to make a decision from the marketing. They have their ideal client in mind, but then when they actually go to do that and meet them, it's still, the message is still mixed up. It's too complicated for people to grasp. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Jay Abraham, who's really, really brilliant. I learned so much from him as I was first learning. He says that as an expert, we defeat ourselves because we have too much expertise, and we forget what it's like to not know this stuff. We forget what it's like to be just starting out. And so we use all the language, that we have. If you ever, sometimes you'll go to the doctor and, you sit down to, get examined or whatever. And then all of a sudden the doctor starts using these technical terms. And then, they say, oh, yeah, well, it could be a blah, blah, blah kind of tumor, or could it, and, all of a sudden you're freaking out. And, you later learn that the chances that it's some kind of tumor are like 1 in 300,000. But he's just kind of thinking out loud because that's the reality. He looks at 100 people a day, and, he sees one once in a while. So we forget, we forget like good kind of bedside manner, or we forget good empathic communication. So, I'll just keep building on this example that we're using here. I know after many years of teaching a lot of guys about dating advice, I know that what they really need is they really need to figure out who they are and what they're good at in the world, and to develop some confidence around, being a good person, to learn how the communication and the mating game works so that they understand it, to build some self-esteem so that they can feel natural in a situation with anyone, no matter how attractive or whatever. I know that that's really important, and that once they're there, it doesn't matter what they say, right? In fact, you, as a fun game I used to play with my friends, we would actually go and say things to a woman that we wanted to meet that was like the worst thing possible, okay, to see what would happen. And you know what? Not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I'll just give you an example here.
You have to give some examples.
I'm going to give you one. A friend of mine and I went out one time, and he said, we have to play the line game. And I said, well, what's that? And he said, it's a game where the other person that you're with gets to pick the girl that you're going to talk to, and then they have to say the pickup line that you use. And I was like, okay, this sounds pretty good. And so he
that's a reality TV show right there, Eben.
Oh, it was solid. So we walk into this little local bar near his house, and there's maybe 30 people in the whole place or something, and there's two really attractive blonde women, and they're standing out like they're lit on a stage because they're really attractive in this place. And so he's like, oh yeah, they're them. And so he whispers the pickup line in my ear, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. And so I walk over to the girl, and I say, excuse me, but you're the luckiest girl in here. She says, oh, why is that? And I said, because you're talking to this guy. And I take my thumbs and I throw them up at my chest. This guy. And her and her friend, they literally looked like someone just died in front of them. It was, and I walked away and high-fived my friend, and I was laughing and stuff. And sure enough, this little bar is called the Circle Bar. It's in Santa Monica, California. Anyway, so you go around, and 20 minutes later, we kind of meet them around the other side of the circle as everyone wanders around. And the girl kind of comes over and she's like, all right, what was that? Like, what's going on there? And, of course they loved us. They thought they had never seen anything like that. So I'm not saying that you want to try that one exactly. But the point is that what you say, I've proven this many times, doesn't really matter that much. Now, the other end is, you can get too addicted to something. You find like a cute little pickup line, that works, and you say it over and over, and then you don't have anything to say after it. But where I'm trying to go with this is that guy who is socially awkward, who just couldn't figure out what to say to the girl, goes home, he's searching online. If he finds, a pay-per-click ad or a blog post or a video that says, how to develop a calm sense of inner esteem, he's going to skip right over that. That's not even going to be visible to him. But if he comes up to a video, he comes across a video that says, the 9-word pickup line that guarantees you won't get rejected.
Boom. Yeah.
That's it. You couldn't stop him from watching that video. There's just no chance. And the point is, I'm meeting him where he's at. I'm going over into his reality, and I'm using the words and the ideas and the level of emotional communication that's meaningful to him. And, a phrase like the 9-word pickup line that guarantees you won't get rejected, that is not something that you're going to come up with, off the cuff. I mean, you're as likely to come up with that off the cuff as that guy is to come up with a good pickup line standing in line at Starbucks. These kinds of things take time, and you have to know what you're doing. And if you go through a little set of processes to kind of identify and then put these words together in the right combination, you make these very powerful messages, these attention-grabbing communications that are impossible for your customers to resist. And the good part is they offer a lot of value, and they really help people. So. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Well, that segues beautifully into some of the training. Well, a lot of the training that you do, it's based on, grabbing that attention with, like, all of your programs are just amazing. Like, they grab your attention, they bring you in right where that customer's at and what they're looking for. So I know you just did a recent training on what are the 2 biggest marketing sentences, and I might have messed that up, but that people can really use in their business to get results.
I think, what you're talking about, they're actually examples. They're the 2 most powerful sentences I've ever seen in marketing. And so what I'll do is I'll tell you about them. And then what we can do is I'll tell you how to create your own, because you can't use these, you can't use these. So over the years, I've been collecting, when I see a great example of marketing, I say, oh, that's brilliant. And I, put it into my mental file. So the first one is a company called Aerogel, who makes this, very lightweight foam and kind of gel type stuff. And they put it in clothing, and they were trying to, figure out how to make better products. And they sent a climber up Mount Everest wearing a pair of their socks. Okay. And it's this, super high tech space age material in the socks. And the climber came back down, and they asked the climber, like, how did your climb to the peak of Mount Everest go? And the climber said, it was great. The only problem was my feet got too hot. Okay, so now think about this for a minute. This guy wore a pair of socks up Mount Everest, and his feet got too hot. Now, if you're a person that gets cold feet, if your feet get cold or you get cold and you want to buy clothing, when you read that, what you say is, those are the socks for me. Right? That's it. There's no like salesmanship required. It's just, and then of course, the other one is Viagra, which I don't know if that's politically correct to talk about.
Oh yeah, no, it's perfect.
When I heard that, if you have an erection that lasts more than 4 hours, seek medical help immediately. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Some guy who has gone years without,
Yep.
erection. He's going to be going somewhere other than the doctor, So that's what you're looking for. That's what you're really after, is you're trying to find, that level of saying something so your customer just says, that's it. When I said that, 9-word pickup line that guarantees you won't get rejected, if you're a socially awkward guy, just hearing the sentence, there are going to be people that listen to this interview that are going to go online and they're going to work and they're going to hunt for hours to try to figure out what that is, because it's so incredibly powerful. Anyway, bottom line is you need to figure out what that is. And what you can do, a great exercise to do, is to sit down and make a list of all the words that your customer uses to describe their problem or that they use to describe the outcome that they want. Okay, so you make a big list of all the words, and then you assign them a value between 1 and 100 based on how much emotion they feel when they hear the word. So, I just said the word pickup line, and I said the word rejected. Those are extremely high emotion value words. If in my list I had words like confidence, esteem, love, dating, woman, and then I had pickup line and rejection, you can already see that, words like confidence and esteem and dating, these might get an emotion value score of 10 or 20 or maybe 30 on a scale of 100, not that much. But when you start getting into words like pickup line and rejected, right, those have a high trigger factor. It's like, if I say the words animal, fish, and great white shark, like it's almost, you almost want to think in terms of a one-word headline.
Yeah, I like that. Mm-hmm.
If I had to make a video or a website or something, and I just had to put one word or one phrase up at the top, if it just said esteem, that's an abstract concept. If it said pickup lines, it's very likely to get a lot more attention. So find the high emotion value words, and then use those in your communication, because those are what grab people's attention and keep it and get them to respond.
Oh, I love that. I mean, that you are really the king of doing that with brilliant titles. I mean, Altitude, Accelerate, Ignite, Ignition, all the different brands that you've created from that. And it's that one word that just like grabs you. It, flares that emotion up. So one thing I wasn't going to talk about this, but I kind of want to segue. So I was just at Eben's MetaMind event, which is just an amazing mastermind event that he put together. And when you and I were sitting at lunch, you had started talking about creativity exercises. And I think a lot of people ask me, well, how do you, first get that idea to create this or, create that signature program or whatever the case may be, just for creativity. And one thing that you shared, I think, is so brilliant in exercises that take your mind off kind of like the ball of where you've been concentrating on for so long and shift that to open up that space for you to have that creativity zone. So I'd love for you to share some of those things that you've done, because I started actually just since being back home for a week and a half, I've been doing some of the things you talked about, and it's amazing. I'll just be like, oh, all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's kind of like when you put your mind to sleep and you tell it, to help you solve a problem, you wake up and you have the idea. This is that same type of learning style, and I'd love for you to share some of those.
Sure. Well, the basic idea is that creativity is at the top of valuable skills in the future. I think it was IBM did a huge survey of Fortune 500 CEOs or big CEOs and said, what's the most valuable skill of the future? And it's creativity. My friend Orrin Hoffman wrote an article about why creativity is more important than systems thinking in the future. Creativity is something that humans can do and machines can't. It's a really interesting skill. And in network theory, not that I know anything about this, but just, as a layman, I've read a couple of books and things, kind of pop psychology books. When you make random connections in a network between different elements, it makes the network a lot more efficient. If you've got a, big giant group of people and some of them know each other and some of them don't, if you introduce random people to each other, all of a sudden you get a lot closer. You become, instead of 5 people away from someone, you get 2 people away, just because your friend made friends with, the person who knows the person you want to meet. So in the mind, with your ideas and your neurons, I think one of the tragedies is that we tend to learn things and then not have that knowledge connected up to other stuff. So we go into a class in school, and we go into music class and we learn how to play. I learned trombone when I was a kid, and we play trombone. And then I go over into writing class and they teach me how to do creative writing. And then I go over into science class and they teach me how to do a science experiment. But no one's connecting these things together, these domains. We're not learning the underlying patterns so that we see how they all connect to each other and how we can make things with what we're learning. And so by doing creativity exercises, what you're doing is you're starting to connect up the different parts of your mind so you can get from any place to any place else. And you can have a more fluid kind of thinking. And you also, when you're working on one problem or one solution or one creativity kind of, exercise, you can take advantage of everything. You're not just kind of stuck in one part of your mind. All right. So what do I mean by this? Well, for example, one of my favorite creativity exercises, and this is something that I see at the core of thinking and how our minds work, is to notice how things are the same and notice how they're different. Okay, so for example, right now in front of me, there's a water bottle and there's also a computer. Okay, so these two things are very different, for example. And so I'm looking over at my computer, my water bottle, and I'm asking, okay, how are they the same? Well, there's kind of a gray color that both of them have. Right? There's a grayness to them. The water bottle is reflecting light, and the screen of my computer is reflecting light. So the things that are the same, and then I would say, okay, now what's different about them? Well, the water bottle is this upright thing, it's kind of a container, and the computer is more of this flat. There's a laptop that's in front of me. It's kind of this flat pancake-shaped thing. And I'm looking here, the computer has gray and black. It's a Mac computer, and this water bottle has a lot of blue and white, colors that aren't there. So I'm looking for where things are the same and where they're different. And you can, if I had 2 water bottles that, I have a Fiji water bottle here. If I had 2 Fiji water bottles, that becomes really interesting to ask how are they same and how are they different, because they may look very much the same. And you might notice, oh, well, the difference is that they're positioned differently, or one has a little bit more water, or they're made out of different molecules. And how are they the same? And you could obviously find a lot of things there. But just by spending a couple of minutes picking any 2 items and asking how are they the same and how are they different, it starts connecting up all of these different areas in your brain. All right. And there are lots of different ways to do creativity exercises. You can find them online. There are great books to read. But if you just will spend 5 minutes a day doing creativity exercises before you get into your work or before you get into your marketing, your mind automatically starts generating them. I'll give you another one here that that'll be fun. Analogizing, which is taking something and asking, how is this essentially like other things? My good friend and mentor, Offer Breyer, one of his exercises is he says you can take a shape and then you ask, what could this shape be? So you could start with something like the number 2, or the number 7, or the number 0, right? So the number 0, what could the number 0 be, right? Well, it could be, it could be a hula hoop, it could be a tire wheel, it could be, a design feature on the top of a building, it could be a spaceship, it could be an advanced pod to send to other, dimensions. Like you can get really wacky with it, but you want to just ask, the number 7. Picasso is famous for saying, 7 looks like an upside down nose. Right? So if you take a number and then you ask, what are 10 things that this could be, you'll find that you can do 2 or 3 or 4, but then it starts getting harder. Right? And try to go to 10. And analogizing is extremely powerful. It's one that really helps connect up different areas of your brain because you're taking one shape and going and finding all of these different relationships. And what happens is if you do these exercises every day, my experience is that they start happening automatically. And when for example, I'm really fascinated with naming things. When you're building a business, you need to name your product, you need to name your business, you need to name your category. There's all these different things you need to name. And the better job you do coming up with a name, the more powerful, the more memorable, the better brand, etc. I think your name is the most important marketing you can do. So I like doing naming because it's a fun creativity challenge for me. And, from having done these creativity exercises now for years and playing with things, I have a lot of fun when I'm naming, and I just, fill up pages of ideas, and, love playing with a thesaurus and taking different parts of words and putting them together. And so these things really matter when you're in business, especially now where you have to constantly test things and improve them and generate options and so forth.
Exact. And I just love those exercises and just the basis of, because a lot of people, especially when either they're starting their businesses, or I work with a lot of offline businesses that now want to go online, and they feel like the marketplace is saturated. And the idea of being able to expand that, where what's different that someone else is doing that I can fill the void in, I think these exercises are so crucial to really open that mind space up, and they're really fun. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So I really appreciate you sharing those. So I want to shift gears here really quick before we finish the interview. But I want you to talk about productivity, because you are so phenomenal at this and scaling your business, especially with the employees and the amount of brands that you've created. And I'd love for you to talk about really the 4 key mindsets that go into being productive.
Oh, so you've opened up this massive can of worms, close to the finish line.
I know.
4. Could I convince you to do like maybe 1 or 2 and go a little deeper?
Yes, that would be brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I define productivity in an entrepreneurial context as getting the result you want. Right? That's it. If you're getting the result you want, you're productive. And if you're not, then you're not productive, which then kind of leads you to, you got to know what you want. You have to know what your outcome is, as they say in NLP. So knowing your outcome specifically and then measuring if you're getting the result that you want is critical, right? Peter Drucker, who wrote The Effective Executive, one of his rules was know where your time goes. Track your time so you know what's happening. So in business, especially in an entrepreneurial kind of business, what most of us want, and I'll just make an assumption for everyone, we want to grow our business and make more profit so we can make more income, so we can have the lifestyle that we want, so we can be free, we can make more choice and we can take care of the people that we love, right? It's kind of a sequence like that. And in order to grow your business, you got to sell more stuff. And in order to sell more stuff, you've got to have better products and better marketing. So typically, the game of productivity for an entrepreneur comes down to getting yourself focused on your product and on your marketing. And in the research they've been doing lately, what they've found is that willpower, the ability to direct our own thought processes, our own behavior, we seem to get a little bit of it and we kind of burn it up early in the day with, challenges and tough things we have to decide and emotional kind of situations we're in. I won't go into the research and things, but basically the research seems to show that if we're doing things earlier in the day, we've got a lot more of our willpower so we can direct ourselves better. Well, unfortunately, what most people do is they start their day off by checking their voicemail, their email, and getting on everyone else's agenda, and then they decide what they're going to do. And that's unfortunate because they usually spend the first few 3, 4, 5 hours doing a bunch of stuff that's, intense, stressful, multitasking, busy work. What they're not doing is sitting down and talking to some customers and asking, what do we need to do to our product so you'll buy more of it? And what they're not doing is, the kinds of marketing tests that we were talking about to see if they can increase their conversion rates systematically. And so one of the mindsets is to just do the work that's the most valuable work in your business first. And do it ideally before you get caught up in email and all that other stuff. We can even go upstream further right? The real mindset is take care of yourself first. When you first wake up, spend the first hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours of the day making yourself strong. Get some exercise, eat a healthy meal, do some meditation before you go near your email or do any of that stuff, so that you center yourself and you start the day very powerfully. Then when you get into business, do the high value stuff first. If I could just get you to spend 1 hour working on your product and then 1 hour working on your marketing, and then get into the normal email, busy work, whatever thing, and just every day systematically, it was a habit. Work on your product for an hour and then work on your marketing for an hour. Product for an hour, marketing early when you've got all your willpower. Because it's very easy, early in the day, you think, you know what? I got to just knock a few of these things out. And then when it's a little quieter, this afternoon, I'll go work on my marketing and on my, well, by the time you get there, you're going to, you're stressed out and you're tired and just it's not that easy. So systemize working on the high value money producing things earlier. If you go to, if you take Dan Sullivan's advice, he's really taken this to a much further extent. He teaches to take entire days, and the whole day is focused on the things that produce the most value. So it's another way to do it. But yeah, get yourself to do it. And then another thing, another mindset I've got that I really like is I call it inevitability thinking. Instead of asking the question, what do I need to do and how do I do it? Ask the question, what condition do I need to put in place so that the outcome that I want happens automatically? Right? So what condition do I put in place so that the outcome happens automatically? If you talk to my wife, she'll tell you how bizarre I am, because there's often like little notes written on a Post-it note, somewhere like on the refrigerator or on my mirror, or there'll be a bottle of water sitting on my kitchen or on my bathroom sink, reminding me to drink some water. I'm always putting things in my own way where I know in the future they'll be there when I get there, and I'll go, oh, there it is. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. So you can take that mindset and you can really extend it out. Probably the example that I've used to make the most success in my life is product creation and launching. If I decide, okay, I need to take things up to the next level and we need to launch a new product, or want to do a new program, I have to ask, okay, what makes it inevitable that I'll do this? Right. And so I know that to make the product, let's say I'm making a video training product because I'm in the, do a lot of training in the training business. I'm going to make a video training product. Well, what that means for me typically is I've got to have a seminar room and I've got to have hundreds of people in it. And I've got to have a whole setup with cameras and lighting, and somebody's got to book the hotel, and then we got to sell all those seats. And like, it's a whole deal. It's like a whole big process. And if left to me, I would never get around to that. It would just never, ever happen, So what I do is I say, okay, what would make it inevitable for me to do the seminar? Because then I know if I do the seminar, we're going to record it, and then I'm going to have the product. And then once I've got the product, it's, I'm going to want to go sell it. But what would make it inevitable for me to do the seminar is to sell some tickets to it. Because if I sell some tickets to a seminar, and there's 100 people or 500 people or whatever it is, the social pressure is going to make me show up and be great. And so I say, okay, well, what would make me get some ticket sales? Well, I have to get the sales video together or the letter, and I got to get that online. Okay, and what would make me do that? Well, what would make me do that is getting my team together and making the commitment. Here's the program we're doing. Here's where we're going to do it. And let's get a hotel and let's sign a contract and commit to spending the money. And as an old friend and mentor taught me, there's two ways to climb a fence. One is you can climb the fence, and the second is you can throw your hat over the fence, and then you've got to climb the fence. And so I'll send an email out to the team and say, okay. And you could just do this with a friend. I mean, you can have accountability anywhere. And I say, let's get together next Tuesday at 4:00 for a conference call because we're going to do a new program. And here's approximately when it is. And that email becomes the domino that knocks over all the other dominoes. Because once we get on that call, I tell everyone, and then we make a deal with a hotel and we sign a contract and it gets on the calendar. And then now I've got to go make the video, and then we sell some tickets, and then I got to show up and I prepare. I am inherently really, really lazy as a person. If kind of left to my own devices, I would just kind of sit around and not do too much. I know it's really, a lot of people say that that's really hard to believe, but I consider myself almost like an expert in the art of self-manipulation. Setting things up so I am forced to do it. And when I do that, then it's easy.
Yeah. And I just love that the domino effect of what you create there. You just reverse engineer of what that big goal is and then chunk it backwards. And I know for me, myself, that has been one of the biggest things that's helped me in my business, because otherwise you get so focused on all the other areas. And, even though as much productivity that you're focusing on, if you don't have that big audacious goal that you're working towards, you're still, a lot of the pieces aren't put together. So I love that domino effect of what you talk about there. And we have literally just scratched the surface here. I have so many more questions, but we're out of time for where we're at. But I want to refer everybody back over to go to lifestyleacademy.com/Eben, EBEN. And he's got a phenomenal training series right now that goes through marketing more in depth than what we talked about at the beginning of the interview, into even tons more into productivity, and then outsourcing and really systematizing and scaling. So is there anything else that you'd like to share right now, Eben? Because I know I've already taken you way over the hour here.
No, that's it. Obviously we have a lot of business courses and we're doing a launch and things. And if you're serious about growing your business, we have the best systems to do it. And just, come and maybe check out our training. I think you'd really like it. I've got some of the most interesting marketing experts that I've met in a while that are going to be participating in the training. Just go check our stuff out. And if it's right for you, we'd love to have you.
Oh, well, amazing. Well, Eben, everything will be on the show notes for all the listeners to find out more about Eben and Accelerate Launch right now. I highly suggest the video series as well. But thank you so much for taking so much time out and sharing all of these amazing tips. It was a pleasure and honor having you.
Yeah, it was great talking to you, Kris.
Thanks, Eben. And I hope you enjoyed that episode. I'd love to get your feedback here for the Lifestylepreneur podcast right in iTunes. Simply leave us a 5-star and a review letting us know what you like, who you're interested in hearing more from, and what topics you really want help with in your business, that I can bring on those key experts to really fine tune and help you in your business and creating the lifestyle of your dreams. And I'll be giving shout outs, so make sure you put your name and your website address if you want me to share that with the community as well. And again, thanks for listening. I'm so excited that you found the Lifestylepreneur podcast, and I can't wait to connect with you and learn more about your business as we continue to grow this community. So again, have a great day, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Lifestylepreneur podcast. Again, I'm Kris Gilbertson, and I'm committed to bringing you top training from leading lifestylepreneurs all over the world to help you break through and turn your dreams into your ideal lifestyle. And make sure to join us at www.lifestyleacademy.com to receive VIP training from specific guests I interview on the show, so that you can really easily start to implement what you've learned from listening. I know we're all busy, and sometimes we don't have time to listen to the entire podcast or take notes, because I'm always listening on the go. So I like to call it the lifestyle cliff notes to creating your ideal business and make it really simple for you. So those will be sent via the email list. Plus, I also want to connect with you personally, and being on the Lifestyle Academy mailing list is where all the magic happens. We'll host VIP trainings once a month that we can't always bring out on the podcast with even more detailed information. And I also want to connect with you personally. I want to know what's going on in your business and what you need help with, and who I can bring on to aid you in creating your ideal lifestyle. And so I'll be asking questions every once in a while that I want you to reply, and I reply back to you personally. So again, until next time, wishing you on your way to achieving all of your dreams. Talk to you soon.